So last night I finished DC's Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross, and holy cow, this story has a lot to unpack. But let's get started. First of all, the art is fantastic. Alex Ross always hits in anything he's ever done. The Marvels, and then the DC superheroes greatest stories of all time. That little collected edition. It's consistently amazing. Now, is it good for a comic book? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's up for interpretation. I liked it. I don't think it's comic book art though, but it's unique and it's something I don't want to say new because it's not new, but at the time it's new. But without further ado, I got my edition. I got the Absolute Kingdom Come from my local comic book store years ago. I mean years ago, and it's just been sitting in my library and I haven't touched it. But last night I decided, what the heck, they call it one of the best superhero stories, one of the best DC stories ever told, and I think I need to give it a try. And so I did. I brought it with me last night to wherever I went, and I read it there, and I read it all in one sitting. And like I said, holy cow. The Spectre in this book he's intimidating, he's otherworldly, he's fantastical, and he's creepy, and I love it. I love every second of it. I love when Norman McKay is sitting in the chapel and he's preaching and he's saying, I see the visions. I'm so far away from God, so very far away. And then the specter comes through the wall. And I think that was cool. That was really cool. And the art there, and he was just such an intimidating presence in the book. You see these superheroes. You see Superman and Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Shazam. You see all these heroes. And then usually in the background of the panels, you see Norman McKay and the Spectre. And it really, for me, framed these heroes' power levels in such a light that you're like, no, they really are not the most powerful beings in the universe. Especially, with the kingdom of heaven existing. So I really thought that was cool. And especially the Flash in this, when he pulls Norman McKay out. But I don't know. There's just something about the Spectre in this book that it was just so intimidating and so good. When he's having a conversation with what looked like Zeus, the wizard Shazam, and whoever the people are that run the Green Lantern Corps. And he says, Norman McKay says, this conversation is not one I'm supposed to hear. My senses are being overwhelmed. So I thought that was cool. And the other thing I really liked, so here's the Spectre. Yeah, here's Norman McKay. But the other thing I thought I really liked was Superman embracing humanity. So, like Injustice, this Superman loses his Lois Lane to the Joker. Which, the differences are how Superman reacts. In Injustice, he loses it, he kills the Joker, and starts a whole regime. Well, in this, he says, no matter who you are, even if you're the Joker, you have a right to life. Well, Metropolis didn't exactly agree with that, and so here we are. Joker's dead, he was killed by Magog, and Superman retires because he realizes the world is different than what it used to be. And I think that is a great just story beat, Superman finding himself again, finding out no matter who he is, that he's still human. And that's also showed in the fact that throughout the book, he wants to be called Kal-El. Every time someone calls him Clark, he says don't call me that, that's not my name. And at the very end, when he's working on a memorial. At the very end, Wonder Woman gives him a gift, and it's Clark Kent's glasses, and he puts them back on, and I think that's very much symbolizes him embracing that humanity. In this panel here, this is right after Superman's getting ready to destroy the building that the UN and all these people are in, because they launched a nuke and killed just all the new guard and most of the old guard, and there's some metahumans left, And as Batman says, enough to be a problem, enough for the same situation to arise. But, and then Norman McKay comes in, and, the Spectre's like, finally it's time to intervene, and he talks Superman down. Yeah, like I said, this is where, Superman finds out other metahumans, lived. I don't know. I think the story tells a great story about, embracing humanity and unchecked power. What happens when humanity gives up our right to live and our right to our planet to metahumans and superhumans, and they don't have the concept of, collateral damage. To them, it's just stop the villain, save the day, when in reality, it's not it. Well, in reality, it's nothing, because superheroes don't exist. But in the reality of this story and DC, it's not like that. Obviously Superman saves everybody he can, and Batman has a great line in this book. Superman tells Batman, if you scratch everything about the Batman away, you're left with still one thing, and that's that you don't want to see anybody die. I know I'm paraphrasing there, but no matter, basically saying, even if you're not Batman, even if you are siding with a different side than me, and we're at odds, we both have the same one, and that is to not see anybody else die. So, just, this story is one that I think if you're going to say that you like comic books, especially DC comic books, that I think you need to read, whether it's online, or I always say, support your local comic book store. They can use the help. But I thought this book, if I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10, maybe like an 8.5 out of 10. I really, really, really did like it. But I did have some issues with it, like the art was a little weird sometimes, but, and I would say questionable actions, but those questionable actions were intended. Superman building this prison, this jail, this gulag out in the middle of the Midwest, and putting these people that don't agree with their super powered friends, they don't agree with them, they get put in this gulag. You see, like I said, questionable choices, but that is showing Superman's idealistic views adapting to the modern age, when that doesn't work. And that's what the story is about. It's a new age. It's not the old Silver Age and Bronze Age. It's a new age of new superheroes, and you have to adapt your views to that. And he sees that. He definitely sees that at the end. I don't know. I really like this story. I think anybody that reads this would really like this story, especially the parallels between gods and superheroes. This is a very biblical book. The Spectre is literally an angel from the kingdom of heaven, where there's the God with capital G, and Norman McKay is a preacher. It's a very biblical book, and it focuses on Armageddon and Ragnarok and a disaster with 7 angels, and those 7 angels being the original Justice League. I think anybody that reads this will like it. It's not drastic in how it changes the characters, and it gets everybody right. And like I said, end of the day, it is a story about Superman regaining his humanity. And I think that's always a good thing. It's always a good story. But if you like this review, I'm going to be uploading a YouTube short. Go ahead and watch that. It's just going to be, exactly what I just did here, except for 60 seconds. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a good day.